I think it's going to come down to one question. Are you safer today than you were 4 years ago? And that's when you look at either the coronavirus or the violence. And I think what's so important, and Biden is teeing it up today when he talks about, Trump's America. We need to do a judo move on Donald Trump, who basically last week tried to brand the White House. These are the Trump riots. This is the Trump violence. This is the Trump reality show of a more violent America. Joe, you touched on it on Friday, the irony, the absurdity that Trump's trying to run as a change candidate and that this is somebody else's problems. What Joe Biden has to be vigilant about, and it's got to be both Corona and the riots and the violence, this is branded Trump. This is the Trump reality show. You are less safe today, whether it is Corona, whether it is the violence of the streets, because of Donald Trump. That is the state of this race. And this is the ultimate branding exercise to reverse back and will hopefully be the demise of Donald Trump.
Welcome to War Room Pandemic, a brand new week and a brand new set of excuses from Democrats like this Deutsch guy. Am I supposed to know who this Deutsch guy is?
Deutsch,
I don't know who that is. But he did give the playbook away just now. We'll get into that in just a second. Episode 361 of War Room Pandemic begins here, the last day of August, the 31st, the year of our Lord 2020. I'm Raheem Kassam here on Capitol Hill live with Jack Maxey, Vish Burra, and the whole team. Stephen K. Bannon will be joining us very shortly. We have a great lineup of guests over these 2 hours. Want to make sure you're sharing this live. Make sure you're smashing those like buttons, those retweet buttons, whatever you're watching this on. Let's get a bigger audience as possible today on the John Fredericks Radio Network, on America's Voice.news, on G News and GTV, blown through the CCP's firewall, subtitled in Mandarin, and later in the day on Newsmax TV. Gentlemen, the game is given away both there and in this statement by Vice President Joe Biden. The Biden statement from this weekend makes it very clear what the Democrats are going to try and do this week. But I want to reflect on what we saw this weekend. It's getting worse. We had a lull in Washington, D.C., which was restarted again this past Friday. We've seen the harassment of U.S. senators. We've seen the harassment of ordinary people who were going to the White House to watch President Trump accept his nomination on Thursday night. And all of this weekend, whether it's Kenosha, whether it's Portland, and loads of other places around the country on a smaller scale, by the way. The president is tweeting this morning, law and order again. And the vice president is sharing statements that say, I condemn the violence unequivocally. I challenge Donald Trump to do the same. Look, as far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump has been challenging the violence since the very get-go. Now, it may not have been in as robust terms as the people in this room would have done. I would have had the water cannon out last night at Black Lives Matter Plaza, and they were marching through residential neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. as well. But this is a farce from Joe Biden. It's a farce from Donny Deutsch. It's a farce from MSNBC. And it's a farce from Chris Cillizza, whose opinion piece this weekend at CNN attempted to do the same thing and label these as the Trump riots. A man was killed this weekend as a result of Black Lives Matter. An ardent supporter of Black Lives Matter. And I guess we're supposed to say alleged here, right? So fine, alleged Portland shooter was an ardent supporter of Black Lives Matter, not just Antifa. There has been a convergence of these two groups. They are one and the same now. And meanwhile, Joe Biden and Donny Deutsch and all these guys want to label these the Trump riots. Gentlemen?
In fact, the suspected shooter has a tattoo of a black raised fist on the side of his neck. So I would say that shows a little bit of commitment to the movement. So you're correct about that. And the thing that really drives me crazy, we're watching this narrative flip. And you know why this narrative needs to flip? Because the Democrats are looking at the polls and they're watching support for their candidate and the candidate of the rioters collapse. So now they're trying to project, this is what they always do, right? The party of slavery projects racism on the party that freed slaves. And so now they're projecting this violence that is completely generated by their crazy left, and I'm going to call it their base now. This is their base. The base is not the 65-year-old Catholic union worker in Cleveland anymore. The base is now on the street in every one of these cities, and they have to own it. There was an article today out in the Wall Street Journal talking about how shops around the country are still boarded up because of these Biden riots that have been going on now for 3 months, without any comment whatsoever from anybody in the leadership of the Democratic Party other than a little wink and a nod and keep on going till they realize that the American people have caught on to their game. So now they have to blame it on someone else. It's the classic Democrat switcheroo. Never take responsibility. Every one of these cities that is seeking social justice has had 50 years of Democrat rule that should have provided social justice. This is a farce, America. Anybody of conscience cannot vote to re-elect any of these people who have remained silent for 90 days, particularly in those cities. I'm talking about district attorneys. Get rid of every single one of them. I'm talking about mayors. I'm talking about city council. Fight back America.
I just want to jump off.
Let me finish up with Jack on a couple of points, Vish. I'll bring you in on this as well. There's so many things here that are going to be taking place this week. Joe Biden talking about where he's going to be visiting this week. Donald Trump, obviously, and Kenosha also. And I just want to say this. Antifa should have been designated a terrorist organization already, but now there is a growing case to designate Black Lives Matter as the very same. And I know I'm going to get a backlash on that for saying that, but it's just abundantly clear. You're marching through residential neighborhoods in the middle of the night, waking up people. You're terrorizing them. You're killing people out in the street. That's domestic terrorism. And it's going on and on. And Jack, you mentioned one thing, which is the polling, right? They're watching the polling change. They saw the Trump bump after the RNC. They saw Biden didn't get any bump after the DNC. They realized that 77% of Americans, Noah Rothman said it last week, are concerned about the violence in their neighborhoods and the violence that is coming to their suburbs as well. It is not going to avoid you just because you live 25 minutes out of the city, 30 minutes out of the city. It's coming to you. It may be coming slower, but it's coming to you. And this is what the Democrats are now realizing. There's a supercut, actually, I want to get it to you, Vish, in the break that I want to throw up on here as well. It's every single time a politician from the left or somebody in the media has said, get in their faces. Don't give them peace. Harass them in restaurants. Back to back. It was put together by this Cauldron Pool website, and I just want to make sure that we play that on the show today because it really exemplifies. People are out there wondering, how did we get here? Because they have planned for us to get here. While we've been talking about draining the swamp, they've been flooding it even further. Vish.
Yeah, I just want to jump off on the point on both of your guys' points about how much of a farce this is, right? Like, imagine the kind of Hail Mary that the Democrat Party is trying to throw right now to get this to the American voter. They have to assume the American voter has a very short memory, that they don't remember the politicians sort of encouraging this stuff. Even Kamala Harris saying on Colbert, this is not going to end. As long as there's no justice, this is not going to end. Also, you have to assume that the American people, the American citizen has forgotten about the hysteria that the media went into during the crackdown that Trump attempted the first time in Portland, where the narrative for weeks was Trump is sending unmarked troops into Portland to try to bring this to rest. I mean, how dumb must you think the American voter is to think that this is another one that they're going to pull over their eyes?
Well, so the word is that President Trump may meet with the family of Jacob Blake, but I'm saying he should meet with the family and with Kyle Rittenhouse. Right, I want to see him stand with the guy that stood out there and stood his ground with his back against the ground and stood his ground. Not the guy who had a warrant out for his arrest for domestic violence and sexual charges and whatever it was that Jacob Blake had. And by the way, may have been carrying a knife according to the police as well, and was avoiding what police had to say. I don't want to see the president of the United States kowtowing to those people. I want him siding with our people, Jack.
Well, I think he is siding with our people, but one of the things we have to remember here, this is a lesson in constitutional government and our federal system. This people on the left who say, well, what is Donald Trump doing about it? He doesn't really have a right to walk into Portland and do anything about it outside of protecting the federal facilities. This is the responsibility of state and local governments to take care of business. And for them to now try and flip the conversation to make it look as if it's Donald Trump's problem that downtown Portland is on fire is, to me, absolutely hypocrisy.
We don't even need to say it. Vish, Ted Wheeler, right? Can we play clip one? Let's play clip one here. Listen to what Ted Wheeler had to say about this past weekend.
Roll it.
And now you're attacking Democratic mayors and the very institutions of democracy that have served this nation well since its founding. Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence? It's you who have created the hate and the division. And the tweets that he's been putting out in the last 48 hours, attacking Democratic mayors, attacking those who are trying to bring resolution to the violence in their local communities. He has an opportunity to uplift us and bring us together and help us move through this difficult situation in our nation's history, and instead, he chooses to play petty politics and divide us. That's my reaction. So I'm going to do the work that I need to do here in my local community with my local officials to take accountability for what's happening on our streets. And I'd appreciate that either the president support us or he stay the hell out of the way.
The work that Ted Wheeler needed to do was to accept the President of the United States' offer to have the National Guard out on the streets of Portland. The work that Ted Wheeler needed to do was to listen to the President of the United States and listen to wider law enforcement across the country who are saying, hey, you got a tinderbox right here and it's going to explode into an orgy of violence. And it has, and it culminated with the killing of a man this weekend. So Ted Wheeler has that blood on his hands. And for Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, to get up there and say to the president, do your job, he's done his job. You didn't accept the help that was offered. I don't know how he goes up there with a straight face, Jack.
Well, the great thing about Ted Wheeler was he wrote a snarky letter explaining why he was denying Donald Trump to send troops. And not even 12 hours later, these people who he obviously feels kinship with in the street, who are expressing their dissatisfaction with Donald Trump's tenor, just like Mayor Wheeler, ended up occupying his own apartment building, which I thought was great. They ended up handcuffing themselves in his lobby. So now, hey, Ted, you're getting a taste of the action. I hope your neighbors really appreciate the way you're running your city, buddy.
Okay, so here's the thing. We've got 1 minute left in this segment. Here's the thing, guys, each of you. What does the president need to do this week, Vish?
He needs to Bigfoot this entire message right now. There needs to be messaging out there saying when he reacted, all the hysteria that he got in response to it, he's got to make a move and let them know these are the Biden riots.
Here's what I think he needs to do. I think he needs to talk to Bill Barr. I think he needs to talk to the head of the FBI. I think he needs to get all of the attorneys in the Department of Justice offices around the country. I think we need to figure out where the money is coming from. I think we need to find out how come they show up with 10,000 fireworks. How come they seem to have a supply system? That's what we need to find out, because those are the people who need to be taken down first.
I got 2 words for you. Insurrection Act. And we'll be back with more War Room Pandemic in just a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
As you know, on 2 prior occasions, I have asked the governor for the National Guard. She declined in those 2 circumstances, but we are in communication now. It is my belief that between PPB, the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office, and the state police, we have been successfully throughout this in terms of operations when we're combined and when we're collaborating. And I am told by our law enforcement professionals that that is sufficient, but I'll defer to the chief.
Mayor Wheeler, you mentioned that you feel...
Did you want to say something on that? Okay, sorry.
Mayor, remaining with you here, you mentioned that you feared that something like this could happen. Given that, how come the city didn't take action over the weekend to prevent something like this?
Well, I'm not sure how you specifically operationally can prevent this.
Wow. That's Ted Wheeler. I guess that's the bid in the ask as far as government officials, Donald J. Trump and Ted Wheeler, right? Now I know why they call these the Biden riots or whatever. General Grant had this phrase after he started the Overland campaign. They had the first, I think they went down to the wilderness, in 1864 under President Lincoln, and he got pretty much dusted the first day, sent a telegram to Lincoln, said, I'm going to fight along this line if it takes all summer, right? I don't understand. We're going to get back into Donnie Deutsch, how the Democrats are going to, I don't know if, I don't get the framing of this. They're in full meltdown, though, today.
If he doesn't, by the way, if he doesn't know, resign.
This is the point. It's not about the Donnie Deutsch sprint and the spin and the branding. We've said on this show from the beginning, action, 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 right? You brought up the Insurrection Act. We're going to get back to that in a minute. But you got Wheeler, you've got these Democratic mayors, Democratic governors that are allowing this to metastasize. And now you're seeing, is Portland on day 100?
It was into day 90.
Something close to day 100 of just catastrophic, destruction of certain sections of downtown Portland. And you can't. It's not a functioning, livable city right now, right? Because of this.
DC is barely a functioning, livable city this weekend, right? You can't go out. You can't go to a restaurant without fear of being harassed. You're getting harassed in your residential neighborhoods in the middle of the night. You can't go down to any of the monuments, the White House, nothing. What's DC got left to offer? Everything else is closed.
Well, this is where I think that the Insurrection Act and President Trump, more being more forceful. I think you're going to see that tomorrow going to Kenosha, out to Wisconsin, the beginning of this. But the Democrats finally have to get Biden. Sleepy Joe has to come out of the cave, right? And he's going to have to respond to this. And I think the thing yesterday with the first time question with no specificity, no granularity, the devil's in the details here. Also you have the super PAC that's up now that has these spots. We'll get to all that in a second. But I do want to go back for the audience here on War Room Pandemic. And today we've got an amazing show. We've got Wahagen, Khabayan talking about the whole TikTok and China, the China technology. We've got Darren Beatty coming in. This report on Revolver, which I know a lot of our audience and what I call the Jack Maxey wing of our audience is going to really be cheering and high fiving. They've done some first cut analysis of some senior people at major institutions.
That's what we call our base, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. They're saying, hey, the lockdowns and all this were 10x worse than the COVID itself, but they're finally doing some analysis around it. And then we got New Federal State. We got all the stuff on New Federal State. These amazing protests all over the world over the weekend. So we got an action-packed show, but we got to start here because we're how many days away from an election? We're now starting the Labor Day is the official run-up to it. And, the president came out with a lot of momentum. People were panicking over the week. You had Bill Maher and Michael Moore, who are two pretty savvy guys. They can understand the math, and they're sounding the toxins of, hey, we're going to lose this. That on the glide slope indicator, Joe Biden it was never much acceleration, but it's deaccelerating. So this is where, and to me, you have bigger, more fundamental issues with this, with the CCP and populism and economic nationalism. But this is the crisis that I think the Democrats have allowed to metastasize, these Democratic governors. It's not, somebody said yesterday, it's not the whole nation that's in uproar right now, right? But it's these cities. And that's why I think with D.C. and even in New York and these other cities, Chicago, right? People don't feel like they can move around. I mean, the other night with coming out of the White House, we had John Fredericks. He gave us a bunch of tips on other people there. But coming out of the White House, people who had been at a function at the White House were essentially terrorized, right? If you didn't go. Let's play. But this is very important for the audience. I want us to make sure you understand the signal and not the noise. This is what, and Donnie Deutsch, whether you love him or hate him, he's one of the smarter guys over there. That's why he's on Morning Joe all the time. Let's go back. I want to play this Donnie Deutsch clip. I think clip 5. Let's play Donnie Deutsch. So just embrace this. Hashtag War and Pandemic. We want you to embrace this because this is the line they're going to fight on for the rest of this fall campaign, I think.
Roll it.
I think it's going to come down to one question. Are you safer today than you were 4 years ago? And that's when you look at either the coronavirus or the violence. And I think what's so important, and Biden is teeing it up today when he talks about, Trump's America. We need to do a judo move on Donald Trump, who basically last week tried to brand the White House. These are the Trump riots. This is the Trump violence. This is the Trump reality show of a more violent America. Joe, you touched on it on Friday, the irony, the absurdity that Trump's trying to run as a change candidate and that this is somebody else's problems. What Joe Biden has to be vigilant about, and it's got to be both Corona and the riots and the violence, this is branded Trump. This is the Trump reality show. You are less safe today, whether it is Corona, whether it is the violence of the streets, because of Donald Trump. That is the state of this race. And this is the ultimate branding exercise to reverse back and will hopefully be the demise of Donald Trump.
Okay, but Joe Biden, and I think it was Trump or somebody tweeted out this morning, I saw the Biden riots. Here's the bottom line. Well, let's call your bluff now. Show us your cards. It's about the granularity. We want to know what you specifically would do about the social unrest, the riots that are now beyond protest in these cities. What specifically, Donnie Deutsch, are you going to do? Want to have a branding exercise? Let's do. Let's have a throwdown. Tell us specifically. He said it. They're shifting another narrative. It's safety. If you want to go to the safety game on pandemic, on law and order, and on the economy, on your job, right? On your economic security, economic safety, those three, boom, let's have that argument. Because that is going to cause a Donald Trump big win, okay? And let's hear what Joe Biden, remember, Morning Joe crowd. You had your shot the week before. Everybody gave you a full week. You had your shot. You came up with your March plan. You even knew after we called you out the March plan is not good enough, right? It's not detailed enough. So you sent Senator Harris. She flies in for the pre-buttal. We're good with that. It's a little non-traditional, but hey, this is non-traditional time. She comes in the pre-buttal last Thursday afternoon, lays an egg.
Falls flat.
Well, can anybody tell me, can any Democrat sit there and give me her punch list? You want a safety on pandemic. Give me the punch list of what you're going to do differently. Specifically what you're going to do. Then she goes on Colbert. Remember, she's giggling and laughing about, hey, she says it. I want to pull her. Maybe we'll play next segment. Not now, but let's pull her. She says, hey, these are going to go through, these protests and riots are going to go through Election Day and thereafter. They're not stopping. Is that her words, not mine, right. Mr. Raheem Kassam?
That's right.
Okay. So on the pandemic, we've got no detail, no granularity. Ted Wheeler's just telling us, if you've got a plan, give us a plan, right? President Trump's been putting forward federal officials, protecting federal courthouses, wants to call it the National Guard, has brought up the Insurrection Act a while ago, ought to be more fully implemented, and on job security. Tell me what you got. He's put a proposal out. They're prepared to sit down, talk about another fourth thing. Nancy Pelosi, who knows where the bid and the ask on that is. But on every one, if this is where they want to argue, and this is what war and pandemic, remember, the pandemic, the CCP virus triggered an economic inferno that caused a capital markets crisis and now geopolitical crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, stock market, and I'm not a guy who says, hey, you got to look at the stock market every day. Stock market's all-time back to, we've recouped. Now it's taken a $3 trillion bazooka to do it, but it's recouped. The jobs are starting to come back. Sorry about that, Raheem. So the devil's in the details. Compare and contrast. What is President Donald J. Trump laying out in specificity? And then let's see what the Democrats. They've wanted to keep it to high rhetoric. This is why we're forcing the conversation. Action will force the conversation. The whole week they had it, it was all orange man bad, right? And they admitted that afterwards. They overplayed that. Orange man bad. Raheem Hassan, Jack, jump in. I didn't mean to dominate.
I just want to make clear for
miss that first segment, baby. I'm going to come and just grab. I know the audience loves it when I'm grabbing the mic. I'm not giving it up.
It's funny that you say that because when you came back after the first segment, somebody in the live chat said, guys, stand your ground. You did such an awesome open. Don't let Steve jump all over you. And here we are yet again.
Okay,
I also just want to make sure for the audio audience that when you apologize to me there, it's because you knocked my mic, not because the stock market's back. You weren't apologizing about the stock market. All right, look. the Insurrection Act. Okay, it's high time we looked at this and looked at this very seriously. The text of the Insurrection Act makes it incredibly clear what it's available for use for. There was an August 14th Congressional Research Service report that looked into the same thing and even expanded the ability for the president to use the Insurrection Act in times of terrorism and in times of natural disaster. We have a natural disaster right now, or maybe a man-made disaster. We have that terrorism situation here. And I said before you came on, Steve, and I'll own this, you don't have to own this, I said BLM needs to be treated the same way as Antifa now. The things that they're doing, they shot a guy in the street, dead, cold, in Portland. This is a terrorist organization. He had a BLM tattoo, as Jack said. This is a terrorist organization. So you get those things in order, you can use the Insurrection Act. Game over.
Okay, we'll take a short break. We've got Chinese technology overwhelming the world next, but we're going to continue this. I want to talk about the protests. We're going to return War and Pandemic in just a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. You're in the War Room, 31st of August, year of our Lord 2020. I want to thank America's Voice, Newsmax TV, and John Frederick's Radio Network, all of our distributors, also G News, GTV in Mandarin. We're going to get to, we're going to hear the voice of Kamala Harris, but you've got breaking. Tell me about the governor of Oregon.
People, this is absolutely outrageous. Governor Kate Brown last night announced that she's got a plan called the Unified Law Enforcement Plan, which sounds really great when you listen to it. It says the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office will prosecute serious criminal offenses, including arson and physical violence. The Multnomah County, this is Portland, Sheriff's Office will work with system partners that make sure there's adequate jail space, yada, yada, hold individuals. As done previously, Oregon State will detail personnel and resources to Portland to free up the Portland police. The governor is asking Clackamas and Washington County Sheriff's Office to support all about support. Number 6, she's going to have the United States Attorney and Federal Bureau of Investigation will commit. Now, this is what is outrageous. This is her official statement. We all must come together, elected officials, community leaders, all of us, to stop the cycle of violence. But this is only the first step. Real change will come from hard work to achieve racial justice, and it starts with all of us listening to each other and working together. Now, here's the kicker. Quote, the right-wing group Patriot Prayer and self-proclaimed militia members drove into downtown Portland last night armed and looking for a fight. Every Oregonian has the right to freely express their views without fear of deadly violence. I will not allow Patriot Prayer and armed white supremacists to bring more bloodshed to our streets. Time and again, from Charlottesville to Kenosha to Portland, we have seen the tragic outcome when armed right-wing vigilantes take matters into their own hands. Gun violence is never, ever the answer. Change will not come overnight, blah, 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 blah. Here she is blaming the victim. Blaming the victim. She's done nothing about this violence for 90 days.
This is gaslighting. It's just pure gaslighting. But here is one thing I will say. And especially if this some way works its way to the President of the United States. I know he likes to tweet the war room occasionally, so maybe listening. I do have to say this, and we love the President of the United States, but if there isn't a response to this, they will become the Trump riots. If the President of the United States does not invoke the Insurrection Act or do similar to bring this to an end that is in his power, then a lot of his own base, I'm channeling the live stream here. People are saying, yes, that's right, but this should have been done 90 days ago, before people were shot dead on the streets of Portland. So nobody's blaming the president right now, but my fear is that if this continues unabated, that his own base will start going, well, what is
one
doing?
of the clear things about the Insurrection Act is it really can only be used when it's clear that the state government has failed to do their duty, correct? And I think this is clear, and apparently some lawyers could come in and maybe give us some correction on this, but apparently the president has to declare a proclamation, make a presidential proclamation declaring what is the problem and give the rioters an opportunity to orderly disperse.
Correct.
Once that does not occur, he has every right to send in the feds.
That's what Raheem's saying. You've got to start.
You have to get the ball rolling.
You've got to get the ball rolling.
For sure.
Right, to lay it out in a very specific terms. So I want to hear hashtag War and Pandemic. Remember, this is, you heard Donnie Deutsch. Donnie Deutsch is giving you the inside baseball on what they're thinking. They're trying to brand this, and what they want to run in the next 60 days is on this is Trump's America, right, on the safety. And it's going to be, I think you take pandemic, you take the economy, you take law and order, you take civil society. You know, I said on Maria Bartiromo a couple of weeks ago, what they want is the death of the American economy and the destruction of the American way of life. And I don't know how you view it any other way, Vish.
Yeah, and maybe we should just refresh the viewers' memory. Before, I guess, Kamala Harris took a look at the polls. AVN, if we can get clip 12 going, but this is what she was telling Colbert just a few days ago. Roll it.
Major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware. Because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that everyone should take note of that on both levels. That they're not going to let up, and they should not, and we should not.
Look, the protests and the peaceful protests about Mr. Floyd's murder and others, including in Kenosha, that's your constitutional right, and that should be. People should say, hey, that's fine, because we should have peaceful protests on our side. But this is not peaceful protest. This is now, it's Antifa, certain elements of Black Lives Matter. These are revolutionaries. I mean, the people chanting, I don't know if we played in the first segment, chanting about celebrating the death of the of the Patriot individual, which the governor of Oregon is now coming out and gaslighting. So, I mean, I don't think this could get more serious. And I do believe that, look, where the president's driven it today is because of action. And I do think, I think the trip out to Kenosha tomorrow is I think it's smart. I think I disagree with the governor of Wisconsin and the mayor of, I guess, Kenosha. I think it's smart. I think it's smart for the president to go out there. I think first off, I think it's smart for the president to go see the damage, right? I think the president, I'd like to have the president go to Portland. Right? I think the president should go into Portland, and the president should go into Seattle. He's president of the United States. These are, and people say, well, they're left-wing progressive states. Well, hey, there's, you got to protect progressives too. Number one, there are a lot of peaceful progressives, and there's a ton of look at the people that showed up last night. There are a ton of guys on your side of the football out there, War Room Pandemic. So that this thing has just got to either American city's safe for everybody, or it's not. And right now, these cities are not safe. So I got to tell you. I think if they want to argue safety, if that's where they want to fight this out in the next 60 days, to me, the details of what you're doing for the pandemic, right? And this is why I realize even on the posse we have here, you may be tired of hearing about it, hydroxy, but all we're saying that therapy. So if you want to fight on the pandemic, if you want to fight on the economy, if you want to fight on civil society, right? And bundle those over safety and security of the American way of life, bring it. I think you saw that he had a 14-point lead at one time. We have said if you have action and drive it from the White House, that's going to collapse. I think you're seeing a free fall. And I believe you're starting to see panic, right? And two smart canaries in the mine shaft, Bill Maher and Michael Moore, right? Bill Maher and Michael Moore.
There are definitely people on that side who did learn from 2016, who took lessons away, who were severely embarrassed.
Michael Moore, number one. He said in 16 Trump's going to win.
But Bill Maher specifically, remember, Bill Maher had Ann Coulter on his show, and they all laughed at her when she said the candidate Trump, this was back during the primaries, was going to win.
Here's something, though, along the lines of the Insurrection Act. I want to just get back. This is why I love our audience. I was just sent a message from one of our listeners. He said, hey, we don't have to go back to the Insurrection Act. We've got the Riot Act of 1968 that Bill Barr can start applying right now. This provides for federal penalties for anybody who crosses state lines to incite riot or perform any kind of riotous acts. A, to incite riot, or to organize, promote, encourage, participate, and carry on a riot, or to commit any act of violence in furtherance of a riot, to aid or abet any person inciting or participating in or carrying on a riot or committing any act. This gives you up to 5 years in prison or a serious fine for both. We should start hitting every single one of these people out of state.
I just saw a tweet in Portland. I think the arrest, isn't it?
No, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, they arrested 175 people over the weekend.
102.
102 of them were from out of town.
Yeah, that's
nail them.
across the interstate lines. Okay, we're going to come back to this. Hopefully, get back to this in the second hour. But want to hear all your feedback. This is obviously going to be a big thing. They got the. Can we play the spot? Do we have the spots teed up? This super PAC. A super PAC has just been announced with the Swift Boat guys. They've formed a super PAC with a lot of cash, and they've done some. They're starting to do some spots. These spots are a little. I don't want to say softer, but I think they're playing towards not the Trump base, but for people maybe that traditionally President Trump doesn't get to. Right. To talk about safety. Do we have them, Vish?
Yep. Let's roll clip 7 right now.
A Nogales police officer has been shot.
Officer Jesus Cordova was shot and killed in the line of duty.
When my husband was killed, I was 5 months pregnant. To see all this going on in the world, I don't want my kids to ever be afraid to honor their dad. To say, hey, I back the police. With this whole defund the police movement, they defaced the law enforcement memorial wall and they put murderers. That's my husband's name on there. My husband was murdered. I haven't heard Joe Biden stand up for law enforcement, which says a lot. You're part of the problem because you're condoning it. What kind of a leader are you? It's a lack of respect. Joe Biden in office could go with all these people rioting and looting. It's scary to think of. How do we want to raise our children? Do we want to raise them in a situation where there's law and order, or do we want to raise them in chaos?
Preserve America PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, that's a new spot that's running with a big budget back. Do you want to, her words, do you want to raise them in law and order or in chaos? Right? Biden's going to have to answer. This is now, I think, a very sophisticated outside group. Was that a 30-second spot?
That was a minute. Both spots are 1 minute.
1 minute, which is a little unusual, but I think they wanted to get their story in. Those are long spots. Maybe we'll play the other one later, not right now, but it's for our radio audience, it's very moving. Clearly not just focused on the base. They're focused on, I think, that spot right there is focused on suburban moms.
Yep.
Right? That is a middle-class Hispanic woman whose husband was a law enforcement officer, killed in the line of duty, right? And she gives a very emotional thing with her daughter, testimony with her daughter. That right there is teed up for suburban women. If Democrats want to, if that's what you're going to compete against, Donnie Deutsch says it. Hey, we're gonna brand this about safety, and hey, safety of the American way of life. Let's do it. If that's what they're going to do. If that's what you want to do, we're good.
Well, and also, where is this country unsafe? It's unsafe in cities that have been controlled by a Democratic establishment for half a century. You're not unsafe in any place that's voting red.
And for Donnie Deutsch, where is the details? Give us what but Joe Biden won't even specifically call it out. It's all this happy clappy. It's all the same stuff you had when you blew. And let's be honest, you had a whole week on the Democratic convention, and now you're looking back and you're all gnashing your teeth because you didn't really make the case. It was all basically orange man bad. And the reason is I said to Maria that Sunday before teeing it up, you don't want to actually talk about your policies, because when you really get into the policies, people start to see kind of the radical nature of the policies. So hashtag War and Pandemic, we want to hear it all. We're going to get the show back on Raheem. Tee up the next guest. We'll do it in the next thing. But talk to us about National Pulse, what you're doing. You're all over this tech issue. You've got Natalie Winters all over there. There's been an arrest in Beijing, right? You guys are at the cutting edge of this. Tell us about, tee up the next guest, and we'll bring him on in the next block.
Yeah, and we'll get to it in the next hour. I think Cheng Li, Australian anchor for China's government-run CGTN news channel, an organization that we've been following for some time. I think that Natalie Winters knows better than the CGTN editors at this point. We've rumbled a couple of other of their analysts, but in the next segment, I want to bring on Wahagen Khabayan. Wahagen is actually the mastermind behind the brilliant design of the National Pulse website. He's our tech guy and our tech correspondent, has been working on looking at sort of reverse engineering, looking behind the scenes of TikTok, how it operates, what the algorithm does, what it looks for. We've been through some of this before, and some of the tech experts out there have noted that TikTok has been sort of looking at what's on your clipboard, i.e. when you copy and paste on your phone, TikTok tries to look at whether it's your bank account numbers, whether it's email addresses, phone numbers, whatever. We're going to speak to Wahagen about what else is going on behind the scenes with TikTok and how people can really...
well, the Chinese dropped a bomb today to say, hey, we're not going to... There's no algorithm, so you're really going to find out how much data they suck up here.
Right.
Okay, short commercial break. Hashtag War and Pandemic. End the live stream. Want to hear everything you got to say. We're going to turn in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
All right, welcome back to War Room Pandemic here, Monday, August the 31st, year of our Lord 2020, broadcasting live from Capitol Hill. There's so much to cover in the next hour. We're going to have Darren Beatty on, talk about this new report that's in Revolver.news about the pandemic and how it's affecting people besides just sufferers of the coronavirus. Also, we'll bring on Natalie Winters as well in the next hour, talk about the latest out of CGTN, and of course the new federal state of China and everything related to that too. I want to bring now Wahagen Khabayan. Wahagen is our tech correspondent over at the National Pulse, who's been looking into TikTok and really China trying to throw a spanner in the works, as Steve said before the break, about the forced TikTok plan. Wahagen, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us here this morning. I just want to ask you, let's start at the beginning. The things that we know about TikTok and the way TikTok operates so far. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so far we know from reports that TikTok has been leaking different type of data, such as the clipboard or videos and photos that one has on their local drive. And so what from my side, what I have tried to do, and you laid out pretty great on the last segment, that I tried to reverse engineer the networking side of the application. So what is the network doing, and what kind of data is the network requesting from the user? So I'm the middleman in this process, and I'm using the APIs of TikTok application on my Android phone to observe these connections. So I started off with TikTok, and I saw and I could confirm that yes, that is true. There are encrypted data requests happening from TikTok servers, and they are requesting data from the phone. These are most of the time decrypted, but through the implementation of my SSL pinning, which basically cuts off the secure line and tries to understand what is happening in the process. I've seen that the servers are requesting large amount of data. The most basic stuff are what type of phone I'm using, what is my network connection, what's my application version, what is my phone version, etc., etc. So there is the basic standard bulk of data that is being requested from the server. There are also unsecure requests, meaning HTTP requests. So this is different from HTTPS, where most secure package requests are being done. That was interesting, and it was quite shocking for a tech company requesting packages through these lines. And I guess the shocking part was for me during the investigation, which is still ongoing, was that there was this one request from the server. This happened one time during 2 hours, compared to the other requests, which happen every 3 minutes. So every 3 minutes, the server is requesting data. So this specific request, codename Gecko, requested some interesting data from the phone. So besides the basic knowledge, such as my phone and my application standard, my application version and phone standard, all this basic stuff, there were so-called channels that were being requested in the background. And in these channels, which when one goes through can understand that they are related to the application. So you have channel named TikTok account recovery, you have TikTok font group, etc., etc. There was some highlights which embedded the name COVID-19. So this is quite shocking, because one would ask, why in the world would an application ask for a channel named COVID-19, right? The other one was coronavirus COVID-19. So these are channels that the server definitely is requesting from the phone, and the phone is sending this data back. So it is important also to understand that we cannot always read behind this line, because the implementation technique it's kind of a hit and miss because it can read some of the encrypted files and some it cannot. These channels were quite shocking.
Wahagen, this is Steve Bannon. Just for our audience, you know, there's 100 people bidding on this thing, and it causes 100 million downloads in America. Is that correct? Every teenager in the country's on there. Our audience either has grandchildren and or children that are all over this, and maybe the young adults listening are all over it. Are what you saying is this all, you know, General Spalding tells us, hey, they're just sucking this thing all up in some interim basis, all going back to a server in China. Is this the CCP? Is this actually more dangerous as far as the CCP knowing about everything about you than has been disclosed in the past? Is that the point you're trying to get to in tech speak?
Yeah, it is in a way that we already know that TikTok is collecting our search data, right? So whatever I search in TikTok application, they know about it. They know what kind of keywords I use. But this is beyond the keywords. So this is an element inside of the application which is named COVID-19 for whichever reason is sending data to the TikTok servers. So one has to ask, why does TikTok need to know the element named COVID-19 and coronavirus COVID-19? So these are two types. So definitely they are looking in some ways. And
we got 90 seconds left, but we're going to break. We're going to bring you back on after the break as well. But I just want to ask this question to clarify for the audience. You're saying that the app is requesting information from your phone related to COVID-19 and coronavirus.
Exactly. That is what is happening.
Wow.
So this Gecko server is sending COVID named elements from my phone to the server.
Wow. Well, Hagen, how come this has not been more fully developed and come out by senior authorities or whatever, and let the American people kind of know? Because now you're talking about American companies, Walmart, all these American companies looking at buying. Why has the American people not gotten a real TED Talk? And maybe that's what we do with National Pulse one day, is do a TED Talk on exactly what this thing does.
Look, it's pretty obvious that the technique that I'm using, it's a hit and miss, right? So this SSL pinning method, it's quite hard to do it. What the listeners have to understand is that when the application is sending a data from my phone, I'm decrypting the application and I'm trying to understand some of the connection. So that's the key point, some of the connection. I don't know, and that might be the reason why people haven't spoken about this, is that not everybody is seeing what.
Well, hey, just hang on.
Hang on. We're going to take a short break. Come back with our next episode. War and Pandemic is going to continue in just a second.